I believe that all of the best comedians are a little bit insane.
Is it just your generation? Because you're obviously so much younger than me.
No, you are significantly older than me, Pam. So
don't let her age shame you. You can be successful, you can make some money, you can make a good living, and you can also be decent.
Welcome to episode 2 of Sassy as Fuck. We have a live guest who is streaming in from Dublin. This is Danny O'Brien. Welcome, Danny.
How are you guys? Hey Aaron, hey Pam.
How's things over there?
All good. Busy January. I'm about to go on tour on Saturday starting in Galway, so that'll be me for the next few months until May.
Amazing. So thanks so much for squeezing us in.
Just for our audience, to give a bit of a background on Danny, he's a regular at top comedy clubs and festivals worldwide, which draws high energy audiences and brings big laughs with ease. He's also the resident host of the Comedy Crunch and the Laughter Lounge, and the owner of Drumhill Event Management, one of Dublin's most successful comedy events companies. So I think that this will be a great evolution of Sassy as Fuck, having a comedian as our first guest. So why don't we get into it, Danny?
Absolutely. Let's go, Aaron.
So I think where I'd like to begin, Danny, is we had a discussion pre-recording about the Doctor Strange bullshit guy on TikTok that's like, oh, I can turn 1 day into 4 days just by using time. So I'm not sure whether you actually seen the video, but I'd love to get your take on it.
I absolutely did, and one thing I'm quite critical of myself, as I'm sure you know, if you're self-employed, and particularly if you run your own business, there is no time off, and it can be a little bit relentless, and I have to schedule in time off. Like, I have to be really careful of that because burnout is such a real thing. But it's this kind of language and this kind of person that creates this kind of non-stop toxicity that you always need to be grinding, you always need to hustle, you always need to do this, you need to be working 20 hours a day. And that's just not sustainable. But if you want to work at your full capacity and be good to work with, be doing your job properly, be focused. Like, if I work 20 hours a day, I can't drive from here to Galway and back. Like, that's dangerous. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
You have to have a bit of balance. Like, one of my friends actually is a therapist, and I went to school with him, and he runs about 60 or 70 kilometers a week, like kind of marathon training, running, I suppose. So anytime he has a really, really hectic, intensive, he might have a couples therapy session, for example. He does a 10K trail run because he's lucky enough he gets to work from home and he lives in the country.
Yeah.
But he's like, that kind of balance is so essential. I do it myself by going to the gym. We can't all work non-stop because then all we talk about is work, and we lose our personality. We lose the love for whatever we're doing because you're just in this constant workspace and you don't talk about anything else, and it becomes very consuming. And a lot of tech companies who are based here in Dublin for tax purposes, who we won't name, but all the big ones, they've got this culture of having.
Feel free to name them, Danny.
Well, no, like, for example, the big ones that would be here would be Google, Meta, Indeed, LinkedIn, that are all within 5 minutes of where I live here in Dublin. But they have all their canteens and stuff in work. So you socialize through work. You have all your meals at work. So therefore, all you do all the time is speak to your colleagues about work. And it's great business, but I think it's pretty bad for human conditioning. And I think the burnout is massive within all of those companies. And a lot of their staff are very transient. They're only there for maybe 2 years. And then they move on because they realize it's more of a prison scenario than a work scenario, you know?
Yeah, big time. So obviously, new year, new me type vibe on my end. I spent a lot of time listening to people of the same sort of standpoint that you've just mentioned. So the likes of Mel Robbins, Simon Sinek, and those guys. And like, I've introduced things just immediately into my life that like the Brick app. Not a sponsor, but a call out to those guys, which is basically just an app that I tap at night. It's like a little brick that sits beside my bed. Tap it before I go to bed or before I go to sleep, after I've done everything that I need to. And then I can't reopen my phone or reopen most of my apps, including email messages and stuff like that. because and until I sit down at my desk, so it doesn't disrupt my morning gym session.
That's
I'm
great.
not replying to messages and emails and stuff like that. So that's been something that's been, I find, has been a massive help. Now we're only 15 days in, and I'm willing to say that despite what Pam might think, it is my 32nd birthday today. So
Happy birthday.
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think you should just pipe down in there, Pam. And just keep a low profile for now. One of the things that I wanted to touch on just from that specific guy is how that sort of, I don't want to use the like mind virus type of terminology because it's like, the woke mind virus bullshit that gets spread around and stuff like that. Whenever it's more just inclusivity and the likes of that. But I would love to get your opinion, Danny, on how this spreads across the board and how it influences, those young, more impressionable guys. So whether they're in comedy, whether they're in tech, whether they're starting out in the role, I'd love to get your feel on how that ends up influencing them, what implications that ultimately ends up having, and then sort of like that take on how we can try and mitigate some of that from a non-toxic perspective.
Well, the most obvious impact I've seen of this exact kind of culture in comedy is, say, 5 years ago, for example, it would be very rare you would have someone recording their gigs. Okay, so if you went into Top Secret Comedy Club in Covent Garden in London, or the Comedy Cellar here in Dublin, or wherever you may be, it's very rare that someone would be filming something unless they were filming something specific. Okay, now at the back of comedy clubs, it looks like a press conference, right? There is cameras everywhere, there's tripods everywhere, they're all on top of each other. And a lot of new comics, when I first started doing stand-up, right, just 15 years ago, you had a pen and you had your little piece of paper and you had your jokes written on it, or in a little notebook, and you would try out those jokes and you would see if they would work. And when they didn't work, you would just have to think about those jokes failing all the way home and just think, oh my
Yeah.
God. And then you would go again and you would go again and you would go again. And, I'm a big believer in the kind of the 10,000 hours that you need to put the work in to get to where you need to be. Unfortunately, now everyone just wants to go viral. I've had a good few viral videos. I had one recently that did 4.5 million, and then the next one I put up did 2,500. That
Yeah.
is the roll of the dice. And for me and for a lot of my colleagues, anything you put up, it's always the stuff that you don't care that it goes viral or not that goes viral. And the stuff that you really love, the really tight bits of stand up that you're like, I love this bit, I'm proud of this, I hope this pops. It never pops because we're all slaves to this kind of algorithm. And even the way we speak about the algorithm, we kind of refer to the algorithm like it's God. All of us
Yeah.
talk about the algorithm. Oh yeah, it's just the algorithm. You have to work the algorithm. It's this kind of weird all hail the algorithm. And anyone who's involved in anything where you're putting up content in any shape or form, I think it's just so damaging because we're not worrying about what we're doing. Like, all we should care about is, are we making the audience laugh? But now people are
Yeah.
going, am I going to get that 10-second clip that's going to pop on TikTok? And
Yeah.
that's not what stand up is. And I think clips are important. I think content's important. I put up a piece of content every single day, have done for over a year and a half. But my show is the important thing. That is just a
Yeah.
trailer to get people to my show. So if I'm just constantly putting up these clips and then I'm not working on my actual show, say I fill the room with all these people, then suddenly my show is rubbish. I've just got this hour of
Yeah.
mediocrity, and then they'll never come and see you again. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. No, I know exactly what you mean. I went to, I'm not going to name the comedian because uh, that's not fair. But I did the
It
exact
wasn't me, was
thing
it?
no, it wasn't you. It was a Belfast-based comedian. I
Okay.
saw his viral clips, and it honestly had me on the floor in tears of laughter. And then I, off the back of that, booked the show to go and see it, and the show was fucking awful. Like,
Yeah.
it was like some of the worst, like low hanging fruit, lowest common denominator, like just like easy stuff
Yeah.
that, like,
Just rubbish.
there's not that thought that's put into it, and then there's that element of, like, okay, you're obviously just a content creator at that stage. You're not really a comedian.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like Pamela's been, you haven't been to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, have you?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
Well, Pamela's been quite a few times. She's been to a couple of different shows I've done, and it's a real brutality over there. Like it's hyper competitive, but a lot of comics go, "Oh, I'm not going to do Edinburgh. I'm going to lose money. I'll just put up clips instead." But it's like basically, it's like going to do a CrossFit competition without ever having gone to the gym.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to do the work. Like I pretty much gig 7 nights a week. Like even when I'm on tour, like I'm doing radio after this today, and then I have a little show in town later to try out a little bit of material to make sure my tour show in Galway tomorrow night is sold out. So that's what you have to do. You have to stay sharp all the time. But I think you proved such a good point as well. If you try and fool people, you will only fool them once. You will
Yeah.
not go and see that person again, and your decline
Exactly.
will be slow, and your decline will be rapid, and it will be permanent.
So on that, you just said about like gigging 7 nights a week. I'm sure that takes a strain
Absolutely.
with that amount of work. So how do you balance all of those points of contact with keeping your sanity? And
So
I'm gonna throw out here really quickly that I believe that all of the best comedians are. It's the same with most tech founders, are a little bit insane
yeah,
because you wouldn't be doing it, and it takes that level of I'm confident enough and I'm willing to get up in front of a load of people to either do a tech pitch or do I'm not putting myself in the position as I could get up and do comedy, but just given those comparisons and those parallels. So how do you tend to balance all of those points of contact, whether they're content, the actual gig, which is what you've said, the fundamental part, the testing, and then probably the most fundamental point that I want to discuss is keeping your sanity and removing the bullshit out of this, like getting rid of this. You have to work like the you have to work 7 nights a week, and obviously putting the work in is crucial, but finding that balance is also key.
I think taking rest, it's similar as you develop in your career and you go further. When you first start in any industry, you have to kind of do everything to learn and have to cut your teeth. And now, the further I go into my career, I think the work that I turn down is actually more important than the work that I take. Because sometimes taking, like, doing all the gigs, if you're everywhere, you're nowhere as well. Do you know what I mean? If you're doing
Yeah,
every club everywhere all the time, it makes it very difficult to sell solo show tickets because they're like, well, I just saw him in this club or that club or that club. That's pretty much the same. But I do three different things to keep myself sane. Cooking is my number one mindfulness exercise. I've been doing keto
nice.
for January, which
What's
has
the
been.
what's the go-to meal?
It depends what I'm doing. I actually am writing a breakfast cookbook, believe it or not. So that's something I used to do food writing for a really popular website called Love in Dublin. So I would do food reviews while I was on tour. And it was great. Like, so I would go for these like really nice meals before my show, and then I would write. I'd have to, this is kind of pre-Instagram, was massive, massive. So I'd have to
Yeah,
write these
yeah.
1,000 word blogs. So I'd record it on my phone, and then I would have to like type it up after I got, the following
Yeah.
Monday. So I love cooking. I think it's great having a bit of music on, cooking. It takes you away from your phone. You're actually producing and creating something cool that you're proud of. You're hungry. Food is great for everyone. I do a little bit of sea swimming as well, which is very different to when I swam in the sea in Dubai. Here in the Atlantic in Ireland, like we're in the North Atlantic here, and
Yeah,
it's never warm ever. It doesn't matter what kind of day it is. So I do that and a few saunas, which I like doing with friends. And a lot of my friends don't drink. A lot of my friends are in recovery, and I actually work with quite a lot of recovery groups. So I do a lot of workshops in like secondary schools. I do a lot of workshops for like tech companies, and I also do them in prisons. And
fantastic.
one of the things I do is a series of workshops called Stand Up to Recovery. So it's for people in any walk of life that are kind of struggling with their addiction. And it's to try and get them confident enough to open up about their addiction and then transition into maybe going into a 12-step program or maybe going into a rehabilitation clinic. Because a lot of people get freaked
I,
out and they go to one AA meeting. And I'm not really a big fan of AA. I don't like the religious connection to it. That's not,
yeah.
and I have a background as an addiction counselor. So I like all that kind of stuff. But I see so many people doing like sea swimming, yoga, couch to 5K, and it just gets them out, and it's social. That's the most important
Yeah.
thing. you can be social without talking about work. Like everyone is doing everything. You could have someone who works as an electrician. There's a couple of comedians that I do it with, and they might ask you, how's the gigs? But then we just talk about life after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do a lot of men's hiking groups as well. I'm in two groups here in Dublin. One is called Crewman, and another one is called Dublin Boys Club. So we organise kind of men's mental health hikes where we just bring lads out and just get them talking, and not so much about football or the pub, just talking about anything, and
Yeah.
just being able to
Love
listen
that.
to other guys. And so that, and the gym is so essential to me. My gym trainer hammers me every single day, but
Yeah.
there's no phones in the gym. You get in, it's like what's it called? High intensity interval training. It's not as psychotic as CrossFit or F45, but you get in, you barely sip water, and that's, for someone like me, that's what I need. I need to get in, and he
Yeah.
latches you out of it for 45 minutes. If I've time, I'll sometimes do a double session on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but I try when I'm in Dublin to get a minimum of 5 in a week. And then if I'm in Dubai, for example, I'll go to the little gym in the hotel and try and do 45 minutes. But all of that combined is what keeps the rest of my life on track.
Yeah, no. So I will say that you're probably doing the. No, we'll stay away from the religious side of things, but for lack of a better term, the Lord's work, going trying to help folks with addiction, especially on the island that we live on,
Yeah,
where there is a fondness for drink, shall we just say, and that culture is out there. I'd be very similar myself with I sort of describe it whenever I'm talking about it that the gym is what I need in the morning, and I'm a creature of habit. So if I end up working from home, don't do my gym session. It's maybe midday before I end up having a shower. I feel gross. I don't feel the same. So my brain needs that structure around it.
it's that
So
dopamine.
I always describe it as I'm I wake up at 5:30, and this isn't the bullshit hustle. Like I go to bed, I'm asleep for. I know. Well, that's fair. I did say that I am a bullshitter in our first episode, so I'll just go back to that. But what I'll be asleep for like 9 p.m. and like I'm such a fiend for like I've got this this running joke internally that I'm doing my best to optimize everything about my sleep. So I wear my Aura ring. I've got one of those. I'm not sure whether you've ever seen them. The 8 Sleep mattress topper that basically cools your bed and wakes you up at the right time. Obviously,
Wow.
I'm in data, and I'm a bit of a weirdo for tracking things. I've got a foot. I've got talking about going into prisons. I've got like my Fitbit on my leg because it wasn't tracking my steps correctly. So like doing 10,000 steps a day was one of my New Year's revelations coming into or New Year's resolutions, I should say, coming into 2024. So been doing that for a year, but I now look like I'm on day release from like Hyde Bank or McGabry, which
Do you want to hear an interesting fact about the 10,000 steps? I only
go
heard this
ahead.
recently. So it was actually, the theory of the 10,000 steps was actually developed by a Japanese smartwatch company who needed a medium. They're like, how are we going to sell these smartwatches? And they came up with the 10,000 steps, and they changed the world. And it's brilliant for 10,000 steps. But
You know what? I absolutely love those stories because there's two examples that spring immediately to mind about why marketers are fuckers. And I mean that in the kindest possible way because they're a big part of our customer base. So whether Ali wants to edit that out or not, but like they're both fuckers but incredible at their job. So like Coca-Cola is the other example that springs to mind of like Santa was green. The holiday, the Christmas wasn't a massive holiday in the States, and Coca-Cola obviously didn't sell a lot in the winter time for obvious reasons. You know, people would associate it with having a nice cold Coke on a nice
yeah,
warm
beach
day.
drink.
Exactly, it's a beach drink. So what they decided to do from a marketing perspective was, we're just going to take Santa Claus. We're going to take away the green. We're going to put him in red, and we're going to give him we're going to give him a glass bottle of Coke. And then all of a sudden, these marketing campaigns, and we have all heard and we've all seen the holidays are coming. Like we're bored of them now from seeing them everywhere. Like they do the tour over across the UK and Ireland to with the Coca-Cola trucks, which is
The gospel choir. Yeah.
crazy. And then the other example that I actually love is Listerine, what basically made up they made up what sounded like a medical term. I can't remember exactly what the medical term was, but they made it sound medical so that people needed to use Listerine. All it was bad breath that they were describing, but they came up with this medical sounding word in order to boost sales. So like that sort of like
And
backhanded
even
sleight of hand is it always amazes me.
one of the greatest marketing bit of hoodwinking that's ever happened on this island. I don't know if you remember, about maybe 12, 13 years ago, Guinness Diageo launched Arthur's Day. Do you remember
Yep,
that?
yep, I do
So
indeed.
basically, I think it was to celebrate the centenary of Guinness, and they pumped. I was at loads of events. They pumped millions into Dublin City. I saw Paolo Nutini and Imelda May in the Olympia. I was in the Olympia Theatre at a friend of mine's show, David Nihill, but I was at Paolo Nutini and Imelda May. There was music all over the city, and it was basically St. Paddy's Day 2.0, St. Patrick's Day 2, and every pub they give free Guinness to the whole city, right? So everyone,
Yep,
everyone in Dublin got a free pint of Guinness. You can only imagine how that went.
yep,
And at, I think it was it 1752? Yeah, that was it.
yep,
1752. Everyone held up their pints and they said, "To Arthur." And
yep,
we
I
all
remember
did
it.
it like we had been doing it our whole life. And I remember thinking at the time, this is insane marketing.
Yep.
Insane.
No,
You've
I love it.
convinced people of a holiday and a celebration that never existed.
Going back to
I love it.
Listerine,
And
do you
then
know?
I'm
Sorry, Aaron.
sorry. Go ahead, Pam.
Listerine was actually created for floor cleaner and also a cure for gonorrhea. And then they changed the because the Latin word for it turned an old Latin
I
word
hope
for
that
bad breath.
I hope that that's not from any sort of personal interaction with
No,
Listerine,
no, no.
Pam.
I've just googled it, so that's what Google's saying anyway. So there you go. That's a wee fact
I
for you,
think you should see
Darren.
a doctor.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Don't be using Listerine, Pam.
sorry, on you go.
On that topic, how much do you think? So obviously we're going through this split the G phase. I know it's been around for a while, but how much of it do you think is a underhanded trick, or not underhanded is probably the unfair way to describe it, but I, the skeptic that social media makes us now. And I sort of think I feel like this way with food bloggers, especially the ones that are obviously being, food influencers that have been invited to a restaurant and they rant and rave about how great this food is,
Are
and
we
then
talking
you
about
go
Danny here?
and
Are you referring to Salt Bay's crumbling empire?
yeah, pretty much that. But also, you get there and the fucking food's mediocre. Like it's not. It's you're like, why did I waste
Oh,
20 pound
like,
on this on this food porn burger?
Yeah.
yeah, I love a good trend as well, but it's always aesthetics. You know what I mean? With good lighting and a good cheese pull, anything can look great. I always try and follow the crowds when I'm traveling. Like, I love the odd
Yeah,
Instagram recommendation, but it should be part of. It should just be like 10% of your overall itinerary. Do you get what I mean? It should just be a
yeah.
mild influence, not your Bible to live by. Yeah, I'm very with you on that. Very
Yeah,
skeptical.
and like
There's a great quote.
there
Huh?
seems to be like 20 odd, like it's probably more, but there's 20 of them that I'm familiar with of Belfast influencers, and I'm like,
Yeah.
is there even 20 restaurants to go to?
Yeah, Dublin is the same. We are awash. Like, everyone with a phone seems to be a food influencer these days. And I have a few mates who are legitimately doing it, who are like they're the top of the bus, and they've been doing this stuff for over a decade. And it's absolutely insane. Like, it's everyone's an influencer and everyone's telling you everything about your food, but like, all I really want to know is, like, I try and take a little bit of recommendations, but there's a great quote by this writer. He's a poet. He's dead now. His name is Charles Bukowski. He's an amazing book called Post Office. If anyone's looking for a little holiday read or anything while they're in Dubai, and he's got a quote that says, "Whatever way the crowd is running, run the other way." And
Yeah,
I always think of that quote when I see people queuing up for a cruffin or for some next like influencer Instagram food. It could be in Barcelona, it could be in London, it could be in Scotland, it could be in Belfast. When I see a queue like that, I go, absolutely not. I'll come back in 6 months when that
yeah,
queue has died down. I'm not queuing up for an hour for a milkshake.
yeah. And I don't know whether it's the same for you guys down there in the capital, but what I know is like that it's almost like a scarcity type of mindset that they try to create. Like there's like a food hall, beer hall type setup in Belfast, and you go to the vendors, and it's like they say, open at 12. You'll go up to the stand,
Oh, the
and
pizza place, I know
we'll
what
be
you're
open in
talking
an
about.
hour's time.
Yeah.
It's the bane of my existence.
Just
It's like,
open for a few hours, sell your nice pizza, make some money, and go.
yeah, it's not that fucking deep.
No.
You're not solving world hunger from that perspective. It's ridiculous. And then it comes back to what we were talking about with the sort of the algorithm being the king of all of these things. Um,
It's a religion I don't want to be a part of. And I never got into stand up to make content. And I have to do it every day, like, because unfortunately you'll drop off. And like, I'm doing
yep,
TV next week. And this is the mad thing about how things have changed now. My clips from my TV interview will do way more views than the interview itself. You'll get
yep,
a few of your man's friends will have seen you on the actual show, but then when I clip that up and then I put it out as content, that's what will sell the tickets for my show. And it's weird how that works. You know what I mean? Like you might only get 1% of the viewers to your actual shows like that. I'd say it might even be less than that because I know because they come up and go, I saw you on Ireland AM, I saw you on the 6 o'clock show. So unfortunately, content is part of our world, but it doesn't need to run your life. I think is the best way to look at it.
yeah,
It's just a tool that you should use for your work, and like your brick, you should be able to switch off whenever you want.
yeah, exactly. And I'm a big advocate for that. I was chatting to Pam yesterday about a topic that I want to cover later down the line, but we can probably touch on it now.
Yeah,
Is so we did so this week involved a mass onboarding, the first time we've ever done it, in order to try and break down barriers so that they're so starting a new job is terrifying, right? So
of
what we
course.
wanted to do was to try and create this camaraderie between a small group
Yeah,
that then goes into a wider group. So you've almost got your little, safe group of people that you've met. You've went through the same onboard and you've went through the same sort of ordeal. I did because I'm going through, as I said at the start, going through like a Mel Robbins, Simon Sinek, 5 second rule, let them, all of those type of, they sound ridiculous theories, and I tend to hate them. But whenever you find a really good author or motivational speaker like that actually aligns with your worldview, it's actually incredible. So
yeah, of
we've
course.
we've done off the back of that. We've had like it was eye opening, the progress of that. But the specific bit that Simon Sinek talks about is like the story about two lumberjacks. They both go to work at the same time. They both finish at the same time. One of the lumberjacks goes away every day for an hour, and the this keeps happening. And the one that goes away every hour happens to cut down more trees, and this keeps going on and on and on and on, until the other lumberjack that isn't keeping up with the guy that seems to disappear for an hour asks him the question. You leave every day for an hour, where you still cut down more trees than I do. Where the fuck do you go? And the response is, I go home and sharpen my axe. And we've been sort of like incorporating that into the from the perspective of you are not what you do here is not that deep. I'm typically the first one in the office, but I'm also the first one to leave a lot of the time. That doesn't mean that I'm not online, but it means that I'm showing the guys that leave whenever you want, as long as the work gets done. I don't really give a fuck what way it gets done.
Yeah,
But the most important thing for me is this what we do is not that deep from that perspective. It's really a crucial point of me from a team perspective. Like I didn't start a tech company wanting to sort of being malign, evil part of the world, like some of the tech oligarchs
yeah.
that we can know that we'll know of. But I don't really want to be on the radar right now, so I'm not going to name names because
Aaron,
I don't want to get attacked on X.
what made you like that? Like, did you have an amazing boss before that's then influenced the way that you then treat your staff, or is it just your generation? Because you're obviously so much younger than me. I don't know anything about that generation.
No,
No.
you are significantly older than me, Pam. So that
Sorry, Danny, do you know about
um,
this joke? You must be just like, what are they talking about? I thought he was 35 and he's only 31. Now 32. So I was
no,
close.
now 32,
Yeah.
now 32.
Yeah.
I can't believe Pam aged you like an Olympics.
No, I know. Honestly, however, it's a funny thing because I've always been. There's everybody that comes into the office. I'm perpetually 30 to most of them. They're all like, "Oh, I thought Aaron was 30," and this happened whenever I was like 22, which was a massive negative. Now that I'm in my 30s, the more that
Take
that
it.
stays around,
Yeah.
he's 30. But whenever Pam hit me with the sort of the gut punch of 35, I was like, what the fuck? I obviously need to go back to my Botox nurse and see what's going on here. There needs to be something that I can do. If Dolly Parton can look as good as she does at whatever age she is, I
Yeah.
can certainly look
Don't
30 for
don't let her age shame you. All that matters to me, like, do you know what? I've mates in my 20s and I've mates of mine in their 70s that I know from like comedians and different, and I have crack with all of them in different ways. Do you know what I mean? And it's weird. I think it's just more about who the person is and what their work ethic and suppose is as well. And do you know, I think there's a lot of negativity. It's very easy for people to be like, "Oh, these young kids today, they've no work ethic, they've this, that, and the other." And I'm like, well, they actually do. Like, they work their arse off, and they work a hell of a lot more than you have to work to get the same amount of money. Like,
yeah.
to buy, like, I'm trying to buy a house here in Ireland at the moment, and I wouldn't wish it on my
Good luck.
worst enemy. Like, I work. I do work 7 days a week. There's no, even on my day off, like, I'll still put up a video every day. It doesn't matter if I'm on a motorbike in Vietnam. It doesn't matter what's happening. I always take an hour out or I get it done in the morning, like your gym, Aaron. And I've just made that part of my life now. And I'm like, this is just the way it has to be. But yeah, it's, I think people, I don't think people have ever worked harder than I have now. Hey, that's the
Yous are
most
all fired.
aggressive happy birthday I've ever seen.
I'm really worried about this candle. I've got hairspray in. I don't
Aaron's
even
about
know.
to
Can I
become a
blow this
YouTube
out?
sensation.
I don't think you're meant to.
Can- No, I'm just going to let this happen.
Yeah, don't blow
Like,
that out.
and
Pam has to pay for the surgery.
like,
Happy birthday.
okay, well, let's just continue on as nothing happened, Danny. I've lost my train of. I've lost my train of thought right now. Like this.
It's the old age. What's the
Yeah, it
balloons?
is the old age.
What number is the balloons, Aaron?
I'm not saying the number, Pam. You're not getting a clip of me saying the number.
It's a 3 and a 6. A 3 and a 6 because now
it's
he's
a
1 year
3 and a
older.
6. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. What were we on, Danny?
We were we were talking about basically about like work culture and
Oh yeah.
you
So
not being a super strict boss and people just getting home as soon as they got the work done.
got you. So yeah, Pam. So to answer your question, I was a bit of a fucker in school. Like didn't do well in any way, shape, or form. I think I've got one GCSE, and it's maybe a C in motor vehicle. So it was just a case of I did not enjoy that structure of school. And you'll know this, Danny, that we typically, as a people on this island, tend to be know-it-alls, but we know fuck all a lot of the time. And from that perspective, I ended up going out into the world and got hit with a bang, and ended up not really knowing what I was going to do, and I decided that I wanted to start my own businesses, and that's basically the journey that I've been on, has been to build businesses the way that I would want to be treated, so that there's like fundamentally what I care about most in my role is caring about my team and looking after my team. Like we've introduced so many different initiatives. Like we've got a Spill in our internal comms platform Slack that allows you to book time with a therapist, like a one-off or 6 sessions.
Brilliant.
We have full-time flexi time, so you can accrue hours the week before and then take them the following week. We've got time the guys can spend with me, which we call water cooler hours, which is spent on the last Friday of every month. They don't have to take the time with me, but it's like their opportunity to chat to me about anything they want, personal, professional, or anything like that. Um, so we're like, I'm conscious of them and the good thing. So I've got 4 dogs, 4 incredible dogs that are sort of like the other part of the other part of my grounding sort of mechanism. I've got a husky, 2 retrievers, and a Samoyed, but the older retriever Boodles, who's the golden retriever,
Yeah.
whereas Roku, her younger sister, is like a white golden retriever. They're completely different in terms of personality. Boodles is like a therapy dog. Like if there's anyone in the office, Boodles, and they're feeling like I know that they're stressed because Boodles is sitting beside them,
Yeah,
staring,
yeah, yeah.
like
That's
literally
your
dead
litmus
ass
test.
staring right at them. So it's a nice alarm for me to be like, okay, this is probably somebody that I need to have a chat with. And just check in on them. So it's a great way for me to do that. And she also has the upside of doing it for me. Like we had our town hall, which is where we bring everybody together. Again, part of our keeping the team on the same page. And I got home mentally drained from it and just pulled her on top of me. And honestly, there is no weighted blanket on the market that is better than like a dog falling, like a golden retriever falling asleep on you. It's like
Yeah.
if I was to die now, I would cause chaos, but I would be happy. Like I would just, I'd be going out on a win from that side of things.
But that's
Um,
that. Like, do you know what? Like that model that you're doing is gonna continue to be successful, and the way I don't employ people, like everyone in my company is essentially their own subcontractor. So I hire
yeah,
people for, I have a series of festivals called Big Night Out Festival that I did one in Dubai actually with Ellen and Gabrielle. So we are now bringing that around Europe to about, I think, 8 different countries in March and April. And we did one in Zurich, Prague, Dublin, and Dubai. And like anything I produce, so whether it's a workshop or it's an event or whatever it may be, or just my comedy club in Dublin, I just make sure everyone gets paid. I
yeah,
immediately, I everyone who comes in, hey guys, how you doing? This is the time you're going to be on at X, Y, and Z. So you just give them the time, give them the best possible intro they can when they're coming onto the stage, which is like you. It's giving everyone the tools that they have to perform at their best and work.
exactly.
I pay them there and then. I say, thanks very much, guys. Send me your Revolut details. And I always take a few pictures of them on stage, send it to the groups, and then they have an option to put that up on their social media. So I've given them some content as well. And just being fair and being decent and being transparent is something that is fading so much in our world.
Yeah,
Like, especially with the rise of crypto. Like, I've one of my best friends has been screwed over so many times by people. Like it's insane. Like there's one guy stole 800 grand from him and about 6 other people with setting up businesses with shadow businesses. And the crazy thing is, the actual businesses were working. They were successful, but this person was just a sociopath, and he literally took all their money, took all the investors' money. You know, has Swiss passport, all this kind of stuff. They're going to make a
of course
movie
he
about it,
does.
but there's so many of these people, and I'm like, you can be successful, you can make some money, you can make a good living, and you can also be decent to people. It might take a little
Yeah,
bit longer, but you can sleep at night with your golden retriever on top of you, and you feel good about your work.
exactly,
How do people
exactly.
not?
Like
I don't understand how you don't value that.
I really like we're like I couldn't agree more, Danny. Like it's like fundamentally you were like a business or any type of organization out there, it's fundamentally built on top of people. And if you are either a sociopath, narcissist, dickhead, that ends up running off and absconding with people's money, especially whenever there's a longevity and viable business, then that to me is absolutely crazy. But then going on that lower level of, it doesn't take much to reframe a message you say on Slack as, "Hey, could you do this for me if you have a chance?" Or, "Hey, how are you today?" Or, "Hey, what's up?" Or, "Is there anything that I can do to help?" And that's sort of how I see my role. My role isn't like I always say to my entire team that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, and I always say that the guys that we bring on are incredibly more intelligent than I am, and incredibly more capable in their roles. So I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. They know how to do their job. I'm just here to really guide and keep the guardrails on and make sure that we're all coming together as a team and moving in the same direction. Like I'm not here to be, like the dictator has dick in it for a reason. And like I'm not here to sort of like say that this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. I fundamentally wanted to start businesses and build businesses to address pain points that I've experienced, and one of those internally was I hated being told what to do. So I don't tell my guys what to do. I give them direction and I let them come to the conclusions, because a lot of the time you can put the best processes in place. You can give people all of the training in the world. But a big part of this is like, we need the rubber to hit the road. I need people to feel, but not just feel, understand what happened, why it happened, and what we can do to like stop that happening. And then the outcome of that is we don't have witch hunts. Like there's no person that's singled out as that person fucked up royally. It's a case of everybody in the team is designed to not do that, is to jump on the next thing and figure out, because in startup there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. There's always, I'm sure, like you would be the same. Like there's always going to be,
it's one big progressional
that don't work and
develops.
Exactly, and it's how you react to those situations that shows a person. Like it shows a person whenever they're under that type of pressure. And there's like it's I can't like it's worked incredibly well for us. I wish more companies would we hear these return to work mandates or sorry, return to office mandates, because there's not fundamental trust there. Like there's not fundamental trust there. Like it's if you don't fundamentally trust your team, then you've got bigger issues than them sitting at a desk where they're probably listening to the same movie that they were going to be watching. They're just a lot more skittish, and they know that you're watching them. Like, get back and let them do their job.
If the work gets done, I just never understand it. Like I'm in a little bit of a different world. Like I have to do all my admin and stuff like that. But like I just need the people to turn up and do the gig. And, but if I needed someone to, like, if I'm out of the country and if someone running one of my workshops for me, all I need them to do is just turn up, do the workshops, do the business, and get out of there. So once they're doing the job, I don't care. I don't need to see. Why would I need to see them? Like, I'm not going to, what am I going to do? Watch them on a live stream? I just need to know, is everything okay? Have you got everything? Did everything go okay? Was the client happy? Brilliant. Thanks very much. Send me an invoice. I'll have that paid today. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't think it could be stressed enough as just don't be a dick. Like
decency is it's short lived, and it's like just be sound to people, be decent, treat them the way you want to treat them, and like. The amount of places I've worked with, and like every school that I've worked with my workshops, they always rebook us next year. Like I'm doing some schools 5-6 years now. I'm doing one for a language school in Barcelona. I don't speak any Spanish, but my friend does. He's from Northern Ireland. He's from South Armagh, and they had the first, him and his partner Phoenix, who's a good friend of mine, had the first same-sex marriage in South Armagh's history.
Amazing.
I was at the wedding. Yeah.
Amazing. It's funny. It's funny you should say that. What's your thought? What's your take on OpenAI and then them building their own sort of real life language? Not real life, real time language. Language system that
I've seen the headphones where they're going, we're going to be listening in at the nail salon. Listen, it's just going to be another tool. No translation medium is ever going to be perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it'll help people to learn. But it's also a bit of a bit of a cheater's way out as well. And not every country is going to be able to adhere to that. They won't have the technology. Like Ireland and Dubai and stuff will be fine. But I think people talk about AI the same way they talk about the algorithm. It's kind of seen as the dark art. It's
Yeah,
just a
exactly.
tool. It's just a tool. Our life is changing. It's a tool. For me, it makes things quicker. Like if I need
Yeah,
some information, I look up stuff for when I'm traveling. I'll go, what's the best place to stay in Japan in May? And it'll just
yeah.
go, that's what I use AI for. Or if I'm putting a song over a piece of content, I'll go, what's a good Belfast song to go with this clip that doesn't have any political connotations? Do you get what I mean?
Good luck.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it's
no,
really useful for.
I agree completely, and because it's two Irishmen and a Scot on this pod. Like, there's a joke in there somewhere, but I'll leave that to you, Danny. The It's an interesting fact actually. So obviously, ChatGPT is part of OpenAI. One of their the CFO of OpenAI is one of our investors, but she's actually from a town just outside of where the fuck is it? Just outside Derry called Cyan Mills, and this is like a backwater of a town. But she is went from that to she was the CFO of Square, sits on the board of Walmart and of Slack, I believe, the last time that I checked.
Good on her.
Was the CEO of Nextdoor and is now the CFO of one of the biggest AI companies in the world. And it's like like for me, that's an incredible story
Yeah.
from that side. Just tracking back to the algorithm, and obviously TikTok being I think we find out today whether the Supreme Court in the States are going to turn off the servers or not.
Yeah.
So like I'm fully picturing them going in their black robes, just turning off servers left, right, and center and pulling out wires.
My personal opinion is Trump will bring it back. It'll just be a big pullback reveal. They'll go, it's gone, guys. And then he'll go, I'm bringing it back. And then everyone will
Yeah.
go, hey. And again, I think it might just be a big, massive bit of marketing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, if not, there's the Chinese version of TikTok. They'll just move to another medium, there'll be Twitter, move to Threads, etc.
Have you seen that though? Like like the unintended consequences of getting rid of TikTok. Like that I think it's called Red App or something now.
Right.
But it was called Little Red Book. So like obviously Mao's Communist Manifesto, and obviously the United States being incredibly anti-communist or anything like that. Red Book.
You'd want
So
to
it's like,
call it like Tiananmen Square now.
yeah, exactly. It's like you guys do realize that other countries exist and they have companies, like, and you sort of like are doing this scaremongering now. Like the people that I feel like sorry for are those people that started during COVID building a business that ended up on Shopify, and their business is fundamentally based on TikTok. Like that.
Yeah.
That to me is more of a concern than I care about not seeing an American TikToker doing a stupid fucking dance? Not really.
Like it's debilitating, but it's a lesson. Like my personal Facebook got hacked, okay, and I had about 3,500 friends, contacts, colleagues, but all of my comedy bookings used to go through Facebook because it was the easiest way for all the promoters. So I could not get it back for love nor money. Or maybe after this podcast, if you know anyone that can help me, let me know. Ask one of your tech gurus. But anyway, the weird thing is, my Danny O'Brien comedy Facebook page is still active. So when I put up my videos on Instagram, I'm getting hundreds of thousands of views on my own comedy page that I can't. So I'm feeding the Facebook meta algorithm. I'm generating them loads, but I can't even get into it myself. And it was a good lesson to learn that you have to have different things across multiple platforms. Because if you have all your eggs in one basket with one platform,
Yeah, exactly.
you're done. And someone can pull the trigger, and then suddenly you don't have a business anymore. Like, and even if your business was say through Facebook, and then suddenly your Facebook gets hacked. More people I know than not have had their Facebooks hacked, and they just go, "There's nothing you can do. There's no one you can call." And that is the truth. You can't ring anyone. You can't message anyone. You have to go in and send them a thing, and then someone gets back to you. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Talking about Meta, what's your thoughts, Danny, on Zuck going and kissing the proverbial ring and removing the sort of the people doing the fact checking on misinformation or disinformation?
It's the most token gesture I've ever seen. Like, Meta is responsible for literal wars all over the world. Like you saw what happened with Burma and stuff like that as well. Like they didn't do anything to intervene on that. So
Yeah.
like you've literally caused like a genocide in certain countries, and that was directly from Facebook. That was not like they didn't have any smartphones. They got Facebook, and then it started this massive kind of like anti-Muslim movement. Like people were banished out of their own country. It was absolutely horrific. There was no interjection then. There was no interjection with the US elections. And then after
Yeah.
all of this stuff has happened, it's like, hey guys, we're not going to fact check anymore. Like,
Yeah.
oh, brilliant. It's like being sent
Yeah.
on a life sentence. And then, they said, well, guys, we're not going to bother looking at evidence anymore. And you're already
Yeah.
in prison. Do you know what I mean?
It's honestly, it's ridiculous. And like talking about the obviously with living in this world of AI generated images, like I hate to admit this, but being in tech, but I got caught by one, and it was during the anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. We had President Biden over in Belfast, but there was a picture that was floating around of him falling outside one of our the hotels in Belfast called the the Grand Central Hotel.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was like a real image, so I had shared this, and then it was only after looking at it again. It didn't help what I will say in my defense, that Joe Biden falls a lot, so it was like on form.
Just
So
a day in
like
life of Joe.
it's just like it's just Joe. But it was just interesting. Like if I can get caught out in it, I work in tech. I should know better. This
Yeah.
media literacy thing is kind of it's kind of fundamental to what we do as a society going forward.
I think if you share any kind of news source stuff as well, like the problem is like you've got like a lot of things like like Lad Bible and stuff used to be just for memes, and now it's becoming like a news source. And
Yeah,
every kind of news source has their own agenda. So like I always, when I'm looking at news, actually, I always try and look at if something's happening in Dubai. I would look at like Democracy Now or Al Jazeera. I try and look at people who are a bit independent and who have they don't have like an American news. Forget about it. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
like Fox News is just like a paid channel. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
literally it's babe station for American politics. Like
It really is. It's like I'm not sure. I'm sure you are familiar with Shane Gillis as a comedian. He's honestly hilarious because he takes the piss out of both sides and just does say about. Like, I know that he's got a lot of sketches on there about like early onset Republican or in the US, or like once your boyfriend starts getting interested in World War II, that's early onset.
yeah,
Onset.
and like
Right wing, right there.
Pam, I've only seen the news in Scotland a couple of times, but I cannot watch the Irish news. I will read it because anytime I've turned on RTE, which is our equivalent of BBC, it's so miserable. I think it's the tone and
Oh,
everything,
Yeah.
and it's like, here we go. There's a voice, and it goes, RTE, flood damage, inflation, housing, and it just, to me, it just sounds like one noise, and that one noise is just so miserable. And I'm like, even when they report on something, Santa Claus is reported to be coming to town, you're just like, oh god. It just sounds so grim all the time.
yeah,
So I really have
yeah.
to keep away from it as a form of self care.
I'm a big advocate for bringing back the transatlantic sort of news broadcaster. Do you
Yeah.
remember like those Walter Cronkite sort of like that type of newscaster from that perspective? Just on that point about like intrinsic bias, and again, I've plugged 3 products. Or 2 products so far. I'm gonna plug another one that I use that isn't. It's actually it's incredible. Just does what you've just said. It's an app called Ground News. And the amazing thing about it is it allows you to see, it gives you a news story, and it gives you from a left wing perspective and a right wing perspective.
Wow.
But then it gives you the additional underlying biases and who their investors are and who their owners are. So like, going into this and reading this, and it shows you it on a graph, typically leans left wing, typically leans right wing, or typically center. And like that's where I will go to sort of read up on stuff.
That's where everyone should go. Like one of my business partners is an international journalist. He travels all over, like Oman, Egypt, everything. I'm sure I'm actually going to send that to him as a resource, because his constant thing is having to fact check and
Yeah,
make sure that news is authentic and verify video footage and stuff like that as well. But that's what people should be doing. I mean, I think we are quite lucky in the part of the world that we're all from, that our news, like, they might report things with more of a bias, but for the most part, what they're reporting is true. Whereas
yeah,
in America, for me, it's just like literally anything goes. Like it's fantastical. It's Netflix. You know what I mean? It's
yeah. And it's also like the 24-hour news cycle does nobody any good. Like
yeah.
it's just like what used to be like the 5 p.m. or the 6 p.m. or the 7
Yeah.
p.m. news hour. It's now just 24/7
Like
forced
that's
down your
like
throat.
Sky. It's 24/7. It's 7 minutes in news recycled for 24 hours.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly,
that is.
exactly. It's exactly, and it's sick. It's just depressing. So I'm going to finish up, Danny, with one last question, and that's if you were to organize a comedy event for today's generation, knowing how triggered people get on both sides of the spectrum, including yourself in this as a performer, how would you go about doing that?
I would choose. It depends where the audience is being held and stuff like that as well. Interestingly, next week I'm doing a sober audience gig, which I think is the first time I've ever
Ooh,
done this in my life, and it's in a place in Dublin City called the Clockwork Door. And I actually saw a news interview, a reel actually, excuse me, a reel on Instagram, and the owner was saying this is a sober space, and I said, you know what? I wonder would they let me do a gig there, because I'd like to do that as a test. So I went in and I met them, and it's right in the heart of Dublin city centre, just beside Temple Bar, and it's all for like video games, and they've got like it's a very Gen Z
yeah,
concept, because I know, because I employ a non-binary employee called Ed. And Ed goes to this place all the time. So they literally have every video game you could play. They've every tea you could drink. They've all these board games. They do kind of Dungeons and Dragon nights. They do loads of stuff, quizzes. So I said, right, I'm going to do a show for them, but we're going to donate the money to Dublin Simon, which is a local homeless charity, because
nice.
that way they're doing something good. It removes the medium of alcohol, and I'm just going to do the show as I do the show, but I'm going to connect the show to them. And there's no reason for them to be triggered about anything, but I think it's all about set and setting. At the start, I will thank them for coming in, and I'll say, you're supporting something really fantastic. And then I'll ask them at the start, has anyone here been scammed? Because that's a lot what my show is about. I caught a scammer, and it's taken me a year, but there's a guy getting prosecuted for scamming people at the Fringe. So when you make that about them and they're invested in the show, they're not waiting there to be triggered about anything. They are actually part of it. And I think that goes for everything and every audience as well. Like if you're talking to an older audience, for example, I'm not going to be coming up and be like, "Hey guys," and like saying skibbity and like trying to throw out all this stuff. They're going to look at me and just be like, "Who's this pleb?" Whereas if I'm like, we've got a few older generation in here today, I always just try and make each individual person feel welcome and try and connect what I'm talking about to them. So if I go, X, Y, and Z happened to me, has anything like that happened to you? And I think really as well is important chatting to people on the way in. I do this with prisoners, and I found it very daunting when I started doing
Make sure we
workshops.
snip that. Make sure we snip that, Pam, and we keep that on file.
Any workshops I've done in prisons, I've done workshops. I did the first series of workshops ever in Irish history, comedy workshops in the maximum security prison, which is in Midlands Prison in Portlaoise. And one thing I noticed when the prisoners came in, they have a very us versus them culture. So the guards don't stand near them. They never have a cup of tea beside one of the prison officers. It's a very
Okay.
kind of, authoritative versus, prisoner situation. But when they came in, I said, "Hey lads, how's it going?" And I shook their hand like if I met you, Aaron, at a gig and you're a stranger. I'd
Yeah.
say, "Hey, how's it going?" Or if I was doing a workshop in a company, I'd say, "Hey, Aaron, nice to meet you. I'm Daddy." I just did that with them, and then I started making a cup of tea beside them. And I'll be honest, I was bricking it a little bit. Like these lads were in there, and there's something very surreal about standing beside someone who's in prison for the next 20 years, like literally touching them, making a cup of tea. But that human connection with them and you
Yeah.
showing them that you're okay, it broke down every single barrier. And even like
Yeah.
here, I said to one of them, "Do you mind if I use your spoon?" And he was like freaked that I would even consider using his spoon. I know that sounds like such a small thing, but those small things are the biggest breakers of barriers that you can have. Those little, like you're saying with your staff, those small interpersonal interactions it just makes everything so much easier. And I think people are losing sight of that. It doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
hey guys, we're all getting pizza, we're all flying to Florida, the company's doing this and the company's doing that.
Yeah.
It's not about those big grandiose gestures of showing how wealthy and successful the company is. The employee doesn't care. They're like, my CEO is getting a bonus of 40 million and I'm getting 500 quid and a pizza. They see through
Yeah.
all that. Whereas if you're
Yeah.
continually looking after people, giving them flexibility, giving them the chance to work really hard one week so they can take time off the following week, the 4-hour work week that was introduced in Sweden that's now getting trialed in the UK, they're the things I think that make businesses successful.
100%. And I know that I said that I was going to wrap this up, Danny, but just I want to get this piece of content if we can. Is so just what you were saying about there about the small acts that all accumulate and add up. So again, going through that Simon Sinek phase. I've mentioned Simon Sinek far too much within this podcast, but he does like an exercise with people. And I'm sorry if this is a personal question, Danny, but are you married?
No, I'm not. No.
No. Okay. So
What, you divorced twice?
uh,
Divorced twice?
Yeah, well, Aaron, I'll tell you the truth. I actually got married as a kind of a joke during the pandemic to another male comedian because we weren't allowed to do shows, but you were allowed to do a wedding for 50 people. So me and Carl had a wedding ceremony.
I
Carl
didn't realize
Spain.
that.
Yeah, it's on my Instagram. I'll send you the wedding video. But we got a shot, like my mother was there and everything with a fascinator in. So technically, yes, I'm married. Legally, I'm not.
Perfect. Well, let's hypothetically say,
Okay.
when can you name the point in time when you felt like that you loved Carl? And the exercise behind that is like you just don't wake up one day and be in love with someone. And somebody doesn't wake up one day and fall in love with you.
Yeah.
And if you take it into a business setting or into a company setting, people don't respect you. Like they just don't wake up one day and be like, you know what, I really respect Aaron. He's a dead on guy. What it does is it's like it's small acts that you mentioned about that accumulate into that respect. Like that's the outcome, but there's not this is what I do in order to get that respect and to build that trust.
Trust is built. Trust is Lego. It's just Lego.
Yep.
It's just different blocks that have been built up to build a fundamental relationship with people. And I think if you just break it down to the simple things, be nice to people, be easy to work with, pay people on time, and just be respectful of people's time. That's a big one as well that I've really struggled with. Where I get tire kickers. It's funny you were saying. I thought about this, but you said that you got a C in the motor subject in school.
Yeah.
I get lots of people who will be like, "Hey, Danny, can you do this? Can you do this wedding? Can you do this corporate workshop? Can you do this school workshop?" And I'll say, "Hey, guys, no problem. Here's everything that this covers." Say it's for a school workshop, for example. And I'll go, "Hey, guys, our workshops will include this, and this. It costs this much. This is the availability. We facilitate one before lunch, one after lunch." And I send it all over. Thank you very much. And then they never respond again. And I get this every single day in some capacity, and it's like your time isn't important. Or they'll go, "Hey, Danny, can you do a corporate gig for us? It's on the 14th of January. And I go,
Yeah.
"I have availability, but only from this time to this time. Can you let me know if you want to go ahead?" Nothing. And that kind of rudeness, it's like, maybe because I'm self-employed, I'm like, I've stuff to be doing all day, every day, and you're leaving people in limbo. But just, if you want something, just say, "I would like to do X, Y, and Z." And if you don't, say, "Listen, we're going to go in a different direction. Thank you for your time." Saying thank you for your time means so much. And I don't understand how people get very obsessed that they're the busiest person. Their work is the most important. Everyone is busy. I'm busy. You're busy. Pam's busy. We're all busy. But just being
Yeah.
courteous and just sending a quick "thank you very much" email goes so far. And I think that's something that people are losing,
100%. So I'm going to wrap us up, Danny. I really appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find you? Where can people find you on your socials so that
On
they
my
can,
socials,
they
it's
can
at
go
the
and have a
OB
laugh?
Comedy across all platforms. Instagram is the main one. And then all my tour dates and stuff like that is on my website, which is DannyO'BrienComedy.com. And if anyone is looking for any kind of workshops, corporates or otherwise, it's on my company website, which is DrumhillEventManagement.com.
Just say your social
Fantastic. I will
handle again.
probably
Just one. Sorry.
At the OB Comedy. Just think of date of birth comedy.
fantastic. I may reach out to do one of those workshops.
Yeah.
Danny's
I'm,
also
o-
the
I'm
resident
over
of
in Dubai actually in November and December.
Aaron's in Belfast. He's up from you.
No
Yeah.
way! I'll be up in Belfast
Yeah.
soon. I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Danny's also the resident host of the Comedy Crunch and the Laughter Lounge. So if you want a good laugh, head over there and have a listen to some of the madness that I'm sure that he talks about.
Yes.
But we really appreciate your time, Danny, and
You go.
thank you so much for being such a great guest.
No worries. Have a great day. See you later.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye bye.
SaaSy as fuck.